right. This is the Board of Directors regular meeting for Sacramento Metropolitan Fire District. It's Thursday, February 23rd. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, good evening, everyone. I'll begin with Director Gould.
Present.
Sailors.
Present.
Weber.
Present.
Sheets.
Present.
Wood.
Present.
Rice.
Here.
Jones.
Here.
Costa.
Present.
And President Clark, turning it back over to you.
Present. All right. To the pledge of allegiance to the flag. Director Sheets, will you lead us, please, in the pledge of allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Victor. All right, Metro Cable announcement. This meeting of the Sacramento Metropolitan Fire District will be cablecast on Metro Cable 14, the local government affairs channel on Comcast, Consolidated Communications, and AT&T Uverse cable systems. This meeting is also webcast as Metro 14 live.saccounty.gov. Today's meeting replays on Sunday, February 26th at 2 p.m. and Monday, February 27th at 6 p.m. on channel 14. This meeting can also be viewed at YouTube.com Metro /Metro Cable 14. And next we get to a public announcement to discuss matters of public interest within district jurisdiction, including items on or not on the agenda. Do we have any speakers?
We have no speakers here in our audience, and Art, if you could unmute our virtual audience or allow them to unmute if they so wish.
Attendees, you now have the ability to unmute yourselves if there's anything you'd like to present to the board at this time. No response.
Okay, thank you. Next item on the agenda is a consent agenda. A few board members have had time to look it over. Are there any questions?
No, Mr. Chair, I move consent.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we got a Director Jones moved in second by Director Costa. Call the roll, please, Madam Clerk.
Director Sailors.
Aye.
Weber.
Aye.
Sheets.
Aye.
Gould.
Aye.
Wood.
Aye.
Rice.
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
Costa.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, now we go to presentation items, and we're going to start with fiscal year 2021-22 annual comprehensive financial report and accompanying audit reports are Dave O'Toole, our Chief Financial Officer, and Ingrid Shiplin, our CPA, will make this presentation.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, board members, Fire Chief Haverty, colleagues, and members of the public. For this agenda, I will be introducing Ms. Ingrid Shiplin to present the district's annual comprehensive financial report for the 21-22 fiscal year. This presentation is in accordance with our annual practice and our finance and audit policy, directing that the annual audited financial statements with the independent auditor be reviewed in open session. Under that policy, quote, the review should include a discussion of significant uses regarding accounting principles, practices, audit findings, judgments, and other requirements under accounting standards and rules. Ms. Shepline is a certified public accountant and managing partner with the Sacramento CPA firm Richardson and Company. Ms. Shepline will provide an overview of her firm's opinion on our financial statements. Because we discussed some of this in our Finance and Audit Committee meeting earlier, she's also going to discuss in more detail than she typically would internal control strategies to prevent loss. Richardson and Company LLP has issued an unmodified opinion, also known as a clean opinion, on our financial statements for the 21-22 ACFR. This year's ACFR will be submitted to the Government Finance Officers Association, or GFOA, for the review and consideration for a certificate of achievement, which we have received for each of the last 8 years. Finally, I want to recognize that the ACFR is prepared by the Finance Division with the close support of all other divisions at the district and in conformance with the generally accepted accounting principles for state and local governments. The entire finance division team pitches in to help get this project across the finish line. Our controller, Ron Empedrad, leads this gargantuan financial project every year. A task that is kept in working long hours and weekends to get it done. Thank you and kudos to Ron. With that background and introduction, I'll turn it over to Ms. Shepard.
Good evening. Do I need the mic? I will let you know that our microphones are not live right now. It is right off to your side right now, and that is to allow for our Zoom audience to hear you without feedback.
Okay,
Thank you.
I'm here this evening to discuss the results of the fiscal year 22 audit. This first slide lists the various reports that we issued as a result of our audit. We issued an opinion on the financial statements. We issued a governance letter that contains certain required communications. We issued a report on internal control and compliance, as well as a report on appropriations limits. And my goal tonight is to highlight the results of those reports. Just in summary, this slide just summarizes the overall audit results. We issued a clean or unmodified opinion on the financial statements. Pleased to report we had no adjustments or changes to the accounting records. So Ron and his staff do an excellent job of maintaining good, clean accounting records in accordance with accounting principles. We also looked at internal controls and noted no findings in internal controls and determined that the district does have good internal controls in place. Some of the highlights of the numbers, I'm not going to go over those in any detail, but just to touch on some of the more significant ones. Property taxes increased about $10 million, and that was $2.3 million higher than budgeted. Charges for services decreased $5.6 million, and that's because of a reduction in the federal funds available under the Intergovernmental Transfer Program for Medi-Cal patients. Salaries and benefits decreased by $32.6 million, but that's really the function of the fact that the pension liability, which I'll go into in detail, that liability decreased significantly, and so that caused a negative expense, which reduced expenses. Services and supplies increased $2.9 million, and mostly because of increased use of contracted ambulance services, as well as increased insurance costs. I'll also highlight this on another slide, but overall, your restricted net position is in a deficit of $641 million. Because of the large pension and other post-employment benefits. I'll use the acronym OPEB for that, liabilities that are reflected on your financial statements. Looking at just the general fund, your expenses exceeded your revenues, or you had a net loss of about $6.3 million. That's due to expenses increasing about $15 million this year, as well as the charges for services decreasing $7 million. You did budget for a loss or a use of fund balance of about $12 million. So this was expected, and the loss was less than what you had budgeted. The general fund balance available is $36 million, and that's in addition to reserves set aside according to your reserve policy of $12.9 million. This is a snapshot of the net position or equity section of your balance sheet on the full accrual basis. Just wanted to point out the components of that. Your $87 million is the amount of your infrastructure basically tied up that's non-spendable. You also have about $8.5 million of restricted resources, mostly unspent impact fees. And then the negative $640 million is what I was referring to in the highlight section. Because of the having to record those pension and OPEB liabilities, those are estimates of amounts for both your current and future retirees. So in total, those liabilities are $530 million and creating this negative. This slide is designed to highlight the fund basis numbers, and so these fund balances do not include the long-term assets and liabilities. So these numbers don't include the pension and the OPEB. So when you're looking at your budgeting and your fund balances available for budgeting, it's this basis of accounting that you're looking at. So this is showing their various funds. Your general fund has fund balance or reserves available at 52 million. Capital facilities 9.9, impact fees 4 million, in grant funds 411,000. This slide is just taking a snapshot of your long-term liabilities of your government-wide financial statements, and just wanted to do this slide to point out the extent of the pension and the OPEB liabilities. 663 million for the pension liability, and you'll see that decrease of 145 million. That's mainly a function of investment earnings as of the valuation date, which was June 30, 21, for these 22 financial statements. That particular date, the CalPERS retirement pool, its investments had significant gains. Again, that's just a snapshot. Expect that to reverse in following years. Depending on what the market looked like on June 30, 22, you could see it flip the other direction. So this is a very volatile number within your financial statements. The next slide is just to discuss the internal control and how we look at that in terms of the audit that we perform. So as part of our audit, we do evaluate internal controls, and that's as a basis for designing our procedures. We look at internal controls, we test internal control policies and practices. We use that information to identify areas where there may be risks of the financial statements being materially misstated. So the areas that we test internal controls as part of your audit are the ambulance billings. We look at the patient care reports. Your ambulance billings are all done by a third party. So we look at their records, make sure that the rates charged were correct, and make sure that that information is recorded correctly in our general ledger. We also look at payroll. We look at approved timesheets and authorized pay rates to make sure that those approvals documenting the approval process is in place. And then we also look at general disbursements, which would be invoices, and we also look at approvals for that as well. So that covers our procedures that we perform relative to internal controls. Then we do issue a report on internal control and compliance, and that report indicates that we noted no weaknesses in internal controls. So overall, our conclusion as far as internal controls is that there's a good system in place with all the proper checks and balances to reduce the risk of any material misstatements. We don't look for fraud, but if it does come up in the course of the audit, we would bring that to your attention. Because of the federal grant funding that the district receives, we also audit for compliance with laws and regulations. There was 4.6 million of federal grant expenditures during this fiscal year. The one that we tested this year for compliance as a major program is the SAFER grant, and it was used to fund additional firefighters. In our audit, we determined that the district is in compliance with the federal requirements related to that funding. Also included in your packet is a report on required communications, and I'm just going to highlight a couple of the items mentioned in that letter. As I mentioned in the highlights, if we had adjustments or changes that we made to your accounting records as a result of the audit, they would be listed in that letter. But that letter indicates that we had no adjustments or changes to the accounting records. Ron and his staff do an excellent job of basically taking your accounting, which is pretty much done, cash based throughout the year, and does all the accrual adjustments at the end of the year. And that's a tremendous feat because there's a lot of information, a lot of numbers going through the district. So he identified all the accruals and adjustments prior to us coming in. So he did a great job with closing the books. The letter also identifies areas where significant estimates were used. And I did mention those already, so I'm going to breeze through this. One of them is the unfunded pension liability. The district is making contributions to the plan, so it's not building up because you're not making contributions. You are contributing the amounts that CalPERS requires you to contribute. And those contributions totaled 17 million during the year. And the OPEB liability, it also decreased because of the investment earnings, and the district is making contributions of $20 million during the year. And also the district made premium payments for the current retirees of 14 million. Again, you're paying for portions of these plans, just not the full amount. So that's the reason for the unfunded liability appearing on your financial statements. So with that, I'd like to open it up to any questions or any other areas of clarification.
Do we have any questions of Ms. Shipline?
Yes,
Please, go ahead, Derek.
just, I know there's a lot of talk about pension and unfunded liability, and I think a couple of things that I think, especially if there's people in the public watching, that some questions need to be asked about that because it's a big number and it looks scary. So my first question would be the total pension unfunded liability, the number was
363,000, I believe.
million.
Million.
And so knowing that, is there ever a date certain in that total amount of money will be due and payable?
No, it's really a moving target. Each year, the actuaries calculate that number. And as long as you have employees that are working for you that have not yet retired, that number is like a carrot that keeps being.
It's not a number that we should be afraid of.
It's not a number that you would currently would have to pay unless the district dissolved.
Right. And I think that's the important piece, that an unfunded liability is not going to come due. What do you think would happen to, say, Allstate Insurance? How much of an unfunded liability do they have by all the insurance policies they carry on property insurance? It's a number, and it's part of not only our budget, but a CAFR's report. And I believe, and have always believed, it's a tool that can be used inappropriately. And that's why I feel that in this kind of a setting, it needs to be explained thoroughly, that there's not a date that the district is going to have to come up with $300 million to cover its employees in retirement, that this is into perpetuity. I did notice in here that it looks like, if I read it correctly, that Metro Fire's safety pension plan is funded at 75%.
Yes, I believe, yes, there is a,
which is
in the financial
which is a really strong number, is it not?
Yes.
It is. That's a very strong number. It shows that our plan is healthy, that we're taking care of it, that we're growing along with it. And that would be kind of the points that I wanted to make sure were brought up, that we're not going pension broke, and nobody is. And I think we've seen that over the last 15 years in the economies that we've seen. And that not only are we very normal in function, we actually are ahead of the game in a couple of areas. So that's an important piece, that a pension liability fund is not due and payable on a date certain. It's for planning purposes, period.
Right. It's a projection, not just for current employees, but I mean, not for current retirees, but employees at the point in time they retire.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Director. Any further questions? Hearing none. Thank you for your report, Ms. Shepard. Okay, next presentation item would be fiscal year 2021-2022 Community Annual Report. That's Chief Financial Officer O'Toole.
Good evening again. Thank you. I have the pleasure tonight of presenting this year's Community Annual Report, which supplements the ACFR we just heard about. and looks like this. I hope everyone has a copy now. Also of the community annual report. Much of the information in the car is extracted from the ACFR. We just heard about, incidentally, both of these were just published today. So you now have, and I have copies of that. This is the ACFR we just heard about. Looks like this. It's intended, the car is intended to provide accessible and easily understood translations, if you will, of the ACFR. It's intended for the general public so they can understand our financials, and anyone who doesn't have a background in public finance. It should be accessible to them. Interspersed in the shorts, it's a 13-page report, are a history of the district, unusual facts about district operations, and some did you know type questions. The 2021 CAR includes a special focus on the Sacramento Regional Fire EMS Communication Center, the dispatch center, without whom, of course, we could not do our jobs and hope to respond timely, et cetera. Of particular interest may be the did you know sections, which are again the informational boxes that are sprinkled throughout the report, such as Metro Fire responded to 85,000 dispatch calls in 2021. The dispatch center also accepts 911 texts, not just voice calls. People don't know that. The district recently received its 4th consecutive award from the GFOA for its outstanding achievement in popular annual financial reporting for the CAR covering the prior year. This year's CAR will again be submitted. We're hoping to achieve that award again. And of course, I want to conclude by recognizing the 2 people in the finance division who really go the extra mile to make the arcane work we do in finance and the arcane work in the ACFR understandable to the general public. Marie Jones and Ron Empedrad spearhead this project every year. For Marie, we call it a labor of love, right there. And it really puts her heart into it. And you can see by really the design, the attractiveness of it as it gets spread around and tells the story of the district. So subject to your question, that concludes my presentation on the community annual report.
Thank you. People too. Yeah. Thank you. Any questions? Yes, Director
The
Jones,
question
go ahead.
is, how soon will the smaller versions and or the card be available for distribution to various community meetings?
I have some now.
Thank you. I have one tomorrow. This will be great. Thank you.
Any other
I
questions?
just had
Yes,
a quick
Director.
question. Do you mind just on page 10, the revenue section? Do you mind just kind of highlighting where the revenue comes from for the district? I think just generally for the public and then for those online. If you don't mind.
Sure. We note here the property taxes are our main source of revenue, in addition to medic-related fees for transporting patients. And also have miscellaneous other income. So funds that we receive from other agencies is another part of our revenue. Intergovernmental transfers, which would include the public provider ground emergency medical transport program and the voluntary rate range program, the other IGT program. Those are our main sources.
Great. Thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none. Thank you, Chief O'Toole. And I mean financial. The next item on the presentations is pre-employment screening process, and that'll be Deputy Chief Bailey.
Excuse me. Good evening, Board of Directors, President Clark, Chief Haverty, Board Clerk, General Counsel, Art, members of the public, labor, and staff. Yeah, I've been asked this evening to go over the district's pre-employment screening and background process. We had a meeting yesterday with Director Gould, Leslie Miller, myself, Melissa Maddox, to go through specifically in the pre-screening is really talking about the lie detector test and what I call the truth verification test. So I just want to go through some of that, answer questions. much of the information that we get is, I can't talk about it publicly. So I just want to keep that in mind as we go through this. So the district has a legal duty to know the person whom it employs prior to placement in a position of public trust. There is an absolute necessity for public employees to be truthful. Lack of truthfulness or deception of any type should require automatic rejection for employment consideration. During the district's pre-employment background process, each candidate certifies that any false statements and/or deliberate misrepresentations, whether by omission or commission, will result in being automatically rejected for further consideration during the background process. During the process, the district follows all Fair Employment and Housing Act and Equal Employment Opportunity Commission laws, both in hiring and in terms of conditions of employment. The background process is the most valuable pre-employment investment for the district, our employees, and the communities we serve. The total cost for a background is $2,960. For a safety classification position, the background process includes the following: a personal history statement, polygraph exam, psychological exam, background investigation, medical exam, and a drug test, of which provide great value during the hiring process. Just real quick. So for the, when we meet with the candidates, Leslie Miller and HR, myself, we spend 2 hours with the candidates. All of them receive this adverse conduct guide. And we explain to them that if any of these you have done in the past 2 years, most likely you're not going to make it through the process. And also to be truthful through the process. And I'll just read you some of these right here. So falsification or omission, which I mentioned earlier, current use of illegal drugs, prescription drugs not prescribed to the applicant, illegal drug use within 2 years, convicted of any domestic violence offense, felony conviction, conviction for driving under the influence of drugs, or driving while impaired within the last 3 years, dishonorable or bad conduct discharge from the United States Armed Forces, theft, dishonesty, or any other character issues that may bring discredit to you or your employment at the district in the event you were given an offer of employment. So this is told to them up front. They're given this information prior to continuing through the process. Each exam in the background process serves as a resource. And I just want to reiterate, and we talked about it with Director Gould, the lie detector test is a resource. We don't disqualify based on a candidate being deceptive during the process. It's simply a tool to say, you're being deceptive. This is just an example. So now we're going to look further into what this question is and why. It is the district's responsibility to know if the candidate is able to perform the job duties in a safe and effective manner, free from conditions that might adversely affect their abilities. The reduction of employment risk for the district takes place during the background process, specifically during the polygraph exam. The polygraph exam holds the most value in the pre-employment process. The benefit of the polygraph exam is that it values and verifies the truth. There's simply checks and balances that are incorporated in the process, which allows the district to make informed decisions on candidates at the deputy chief level of employment. So, excuse me, sorry, I misread that. The benefit of, right, I messed up, sorry. So yeah, checks and balances are incorporated during the process. during the process, if a candidate is deemed to be disqualified, myself and another deputy chief both read a report and determine if we both agree if this meets actionable to be disqualified. And if we don't both agree, then that person, that candidate will continue on. It is the executive team. It is the executive team's opinion that the district's best interest to continue to use this polygraph exam as a resource that contributes to the overall evaluation of the candidate during pre-employment background process. The district follows the best employment practices that are fiscally responsible and transparent, and we will continue to research and develop strategies for improving policies and procedures while maintaining the integrity of the process. So at that time, I'd like to open up for questions. I know that we had about an hour and a half long discussion yesterday, Director Gould, and if anyone else has any questions about the process or rumors that you may have heard out there. One thing I will throw out, I've heard examples of people being disqualified because they're nervous or anxious. I will tell you that in the 15 months now that I've been going through this process, I have not disqualified one candidate simply because they're anxious or nervous. We all understand that going through this process, it's very, it makes people anxious. Your livelihood's being hung out there. Everything you've done in your life, you're telling someone that you don't know. And we fully understand that. And those who we have under contract who are performing that test are fully aware of that as well. And so it's simply a tool, the polygraph test. I know we talked about possible, is there something better? Can we, go to something new? When I got hired, we used the stress test voice analyzer. And at the time, there was inconsistencies. So we moved to the polygraph test as part of the exam. And since we've done it, not one person has failed simply because of nervousness or anxiousness. So I know that that's one of the misconceptions out there. What I would tell you is that, people may not want to divulge why they're failing the exam, but I am always willing and want to give people an opportunity to improve, whether they've done a drug in their past, made mistakes. We're all human, but the ones that we are disqualifying are well above what would be reasonable.
Thank you. Do we have any, Director Jones?
Thank you. Director Gould, I would be interested if you could give us an executive summary of some of the issues that were discussed earlier.
Well, thank you, Gay. First off, before I do any of that, let me first thank Chief Bailey and the HR team. They did a wonderful job of conversing with me over an hour and a half about this topic, which has been a topic that I've been approached by many individuals to learn more about it. And before I just give you a quick summary, which Chief Bailey did a good job, is that our process for pre-employment is in solid hands. The passion that I heard in my meeting with the staff was incredible and remarkable. They do an exceptional job. And some of the things they shared with me, I had no idea, and it was very telling. And so it really boiled down to, are we constantly looking for techniques, strategies, tools that make our pre-employment truth verification process the cleanest, the most reliable, the most valid that we can? And the staff assured me that we would continue to do that, which is a significant, I think, positive for the policy of our district. But I just wanted to lay to rest any idea that people are slipping through or our staff aren't passionate about it. They are, and they do a great job. And as Chief Bailey has mentioned, one of my major concerns was, are we in fact using truth validation measures that have high levels of false positives or false negatives. And just as what Chief Bailey said, they do not have a candidate in the past that was for that reason alone removed from the process. That is not how it works. And that was very telling for me because I was unsure of that. But we talked about a myriad of issues relative to pre-employment, particularly focusing on the issue of polygraph and some of the challenges that the science brings to the issue of polygraph. And we went over some of those things and we talked about the science behind it. We also had an opportunity to look into some of the detailed data that is a historical data point relative to the use of polygraph in our district. And that was very telling as well, because it really clarified some of the, as Chief Bailey has once again said, some of the rumors and some of the optics that are out there in the industry. Let me finalize by saying this. It was a very transparent meeting. And in fact, the document that Chief Bailey just shared with all of you, I was unaware of. And it is given to candidates when they start the process, and it's explained in detail during a pre-employment orientation. In addition to that, our staff were willing to share that document, not only on the website, but with me so that I could distribute it amongst those individuals in our community who are thinking about starting a pathway towards public safety. And I thought that was a very positive thing, and I've already received feedback today on it. So I looked at this hour-and-a-half meeting as a beginning of a continued dialogue to ensure that all of the data and the tools used to gather that data are at the cutting edge of validity and reliability, that we're not using tools that have not been substantiated by science. And again, I'll just end. I came away from that meeting feeling even more secure that the staff in the HR and Chief Bailey and his group are doing a wonderful job of ensuring transparency with candidates who are considering a lifetime of employment at Metro Fire. So Chief Bailey, thank you for that. Gay, I hope that answered your question.
Thank you, Director Gould. I'm glad we took care of that issue. Are there any other directors that have any questions or?
I do
After
have a
this-
quick one. I do have a quick one, and Chief Bailey can get to me offline. How does one know if it's just nervousness and anxiety?
So are you asking how does the candidate know?
No. You just said that you can tell because what's nervous, that you've never discharged or dismissed someone because you could, not you, but because it was, one could tell whether it was just nervousness or anxiousness vis-a-vis lying.
Yeah, so when they're performing the exam, they create a baseline. And so during the test, when they're keeping track of your heart rate, they can tell by the variations of it. And they know what the normal variation would be versus if someone's trying to be deceptive by either changing their breathing, coughing, moving while they're answering questions. So they're able to decipher the difference between that. And if there is an issue, they always have the ability to bring them back through and retry them through and retest them.
Well, no, thank you for the information. I'd like to see that sheet as well, and then a couple other more specifics to follow
Sure.
up online, just for my packet of knowledge here. Thank you.
No, I
And,
appreciate it.
and I think there are other directors at this dais that would probably like to see that document also. Unless, right, I mean, I know I would like to see it personally.
And we're available if we can meet with 3 of you at a time. If you would like to come in and we go through the presentation and get a little bit more down in the weeds,
Okay,
we're available to do that as well, but we definitely will get you that information. But I would just like to just say that the process we have in place, I trust, and I would verify that it's working, and I would recommend continue to use it as we go forward. And if we ever did make a change, I would recommend that it's equal to or better than what we have in place today, and not lessening pre-employment screening.
thank you for that. Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
Can I ask Director Gould a question?
Yes, go ahead.
Did you take the test yourself by chance?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, heck no.
Mm,
Have you, Chief?
Yes, indeed.
I have not taken this test.
Okay.
Okay,
Mr. Reeves?
If you don't take it in front of all of you, I'll fail it.
Director Rice, yes.
There was one thing, Chief Bailey, you said, and I think it's really important and we need to note it. I think it is super important that at the end of the day, yourself and another chief officer do an evaluation of the maybe pile, the no pile, and have the ability to make that final decision. I can tell you from sitting in that office that there are a number of successful people employed here because we moved them, myself and Mark Wells, out of the maybe and the no pile because we read and spent a little bit more time with it. And so I commend you for that. Please keep doing that. It's important.
Yes, it
You know,
is.
when I took over as deputy and they told me I was going to make these decisions, I carried that burden. Thus far, it hasn't been tough decisions, but yeah, we do look at severity of act, time and distance, and judgment, improvement and judgment. You know, those are the three things we look at. Where are you at today compared to where you were a year and a half ago when you made that decision?
Thank you for that great presentation, Chief.
All right, thank you.
All right, having no further questions. All right. Okay, next on the presentation, we have a workers' compensation overview, and that's Human Resources Manager Melissa Maddox and Workers' Compensation Coordinator Candace Sarlis. I hope I said your name right.
Yes, sir.
Oh,
Absolutely.
all right.
Thank you.
All right.
Good evening, directors, Chief Haverty. I'm Melissa Maddox, the HR manager with Metro Fire, and I'd also like to introduce you to Candace Sarlis. She's our work comp coordinator in HR. And she is going to go over the work comp process with you and allow you to ask some questions at the end. But first, I just want to update you with some of the items that we've been working on to improve our work comp process. I know Chief Haverty has been updating you as well. So some of it might be a repeat, but this is just more of an update. But we're currently in the RFP process. The administrative review of the document or the RFP itself is done. It's now with 522 for their review, and then once they're done, it'll go to legal for review. So we're hoping to get it out in the next couple of weeks. And also last week or the week before last, me and Candace and Chief Bailey attended the PARMA conference in Sacramento. And we spent 2 full days handing out business cards for our procurement specialists and talking to all the exhibitors. They have a large amount of exhibitors, and it's a risk management conference. So we met, I don't know, 10 or 11 different TPAs. Talk to them, let them know that we're going to be going out to RFP to look out for our bids, and handed out business cards. And it seems like that was pretty successful. Courtney let me know this morning that we've already had 6 different vendors contact her and say, when's your RFP coming out? We want to put it in a proposal. So we're kind of excited for that. Maybe this time we'll get a good group, a good selection to review and choose from. And then also, so we're still working on getting more information on our website, different pages and links with helpful information, all the forms that you would need instead of having to go in our forms docs, videos. We've been kind of bouncing around ideas on how to do the videos or what content. I know Chief Bailey wanted to do more of a question and answer type video. So we're still kind of bouncing that around. But hopefully we get those up there soon as well. So now I will pass it over to Candace so she can go through the presentation with you, unless you have any questions for me at this moment.
Are there any questions of Ms. Maddox? Okay. Go ahead, please.
Good evening, Board of Directors, Chief Haverty. Thank you so much for having me tonight. What I like to go through this process tonight that I'll be presenting is kind of the workflow of what happens when an employee sustains an injury. So we're going to start off with kind of who's who in the work comp process. As you may already know, Sedgwick is our third-party administrator for all of our claims. Another identity is CareWorks. They're our nurse case management process. They're a company that handles our utilization review, and I will go into that in further detail later. Again, I wanted to introduce myself. It's Candace Sarlis, and I have been with the district just shy of 9 years. I'm handling the workers' comp for the district. We also are supported by Lenahan Slater, Pearson Majernick as our defense attorneys when we have claims that are litigated. So initially, what we're going to start here is if an injury occurs, the injured worker needs to notify their chain of command within 24 hours that an injury has taken place. The injured worker is given the workers' compensation claim forms to complete and submit. Those forms are located on our Metro Fire apps. And also the stations will have our work comp forms, our hard copies, and also the BCs, like if they're out on a call, they could have access to those forms, especially if they are injured and need to seek treatment immediately to an ER if something happens. Once those forms are completed by the injured worker and submitted to me, I do review them to complete them. I will also send the injured worker an email letting them know that I received the claim forms, a little introduction to myself, and also a little bit about the process of where to seek treatment at a work comp facility or with the work comp doctor. Once I do that, I will go ahead and submit those forms electronically to Sedgwick to start the claims process. At that time, Sedgwick has 14 days to let the injured worker know if the claim is going to be accepted, delayed, or denied. And they also will touch base with them within 48 hours of receiving the claim to also introduce themselves and help them walk through the work comp process. What I'm going to cover in the next few slides are the flow process for the acceptance of a claim, the delay, and the denial of a claim. So I'm going to go through each one individually. So the first one that we're going to start off with is the acceptance of a claim. So for when an injury is sustained, the employees can go to, like I mentioned before, any doctor or medical facility that accepts workers' comp. If the injury is sustained on a weekend on their shift, they can go to the ER or an urgent care clinic as necessary. Medical treatment is provided and the work status is determined by the treating physician. I just want to take a few minutes just to go over kind of work statuses that are submitted to me, just so we kind of, the process. So when the injured worker is evaluated, the doctor can say, one, he is released or he or she is released to full duty, which means they can go back to the line. They can still get further treatment of chiropractic care, things of that nature if necessary, but the doctors deem that they could actually be safe to return. The second option would be a light duty status, and that basically means the treatment plan between the doctor and the injured worker, that they have work restrictions that would preclude them from returning to the line right now. But typically the restrictions are desk work, something with lighter loads that we can actually find like a temporary day position for them to come in and still stay part of the workforce while they're recovering from their injury. The last one would be a temporary total disability, meaning an off work status to where the doctor deems that the injured worker should really be at home resting and recovering from that injury and not coming into a day position. During the treatment plans that the doctor and the injured worker have come together with, sometimes the doctor will need to request certain services, medical services for the injured worker to help them with their treatment and their recovery plan. So part of that is they do have to submit a utilization review. So like I mentioned before, CareWorks is our company that handles the utilization reviews. And part of that process is that the doctors, when they are requesting maybe surgery or certain aspects of care, that they have to follow the California Medical Treatment Utilization Schedule when requesting services. It's called an RFA, so that's one of the common terms that you might have heard. And the utilization review, when they receive that request, they do have 5 business days to review it and respond back to the injured worker and to the treating physician to let them know the status. In regards to the status, if everything that the information there and it follows the medical schedule, then you can definitely approve that medical service, and then services will be rendered. In the case, sometimes there are what called UR denials. When that happens, that UR denial is sent to the doctor and the medical and the injured worker, to which they will have time in about 10 days to then give further information, because sometimes UR will say, oh, I'm sorry, some information is missing. Can you please give me more? Or something is not complete in that process. So then the doctor can appeal that and actually give more information. So different body, whatever is going on with body parts, or definitely more information on why that situation or that medical need is necessary. So they can do that, or they can offer a peer-to-peer. So the doctor will then contact UR and then make an appointment so they can have a peer-to-peer talking about why that service is needed, as long as it's following the medical guidelines. At that time, it can be then approved, or if again, still not enough information is given, then UR has the option to deny that service. Going on the claim, once you're doing treatment and everything's been going on fine, at some point when your treatment and you are returning back to work full duty and you have reached what they deem as maximal medical improvement, this is the point where the case is coming to a resolution and closure. So there are two ways to go about that. Sometimes if you are released with restrictions on an accepted claim, that can go through a further process of if you need a qualified medical exam or an agreed medical exam to determine if you have any permanent disability benefits that are needed. And sometimes you are discharged with care, from care without any restrictions. Again, that means you can return full duty to the line, but again, you may still need that QME or an agreed medical exam if there's any permanent disability benefits rendered. One of the next options is a delay of a claim. And Sedgwick has up to, any third-party administrator like Sedgwick has up to 90 days to investigate a claim. So just wanted to let you know that, you can still receive medical treatment while the claim is on delay for up to $10,000. And you guys, I'm sure, have mentioned before that effective 1/1, that for the presumptions, that timeframe has been cut down to 75 days. Again, during this time, the doctor, you can be seeking treatment. The doctor can request medical services. You are, again, will follow the same process. If they approve them or deny them, we'll still go through the same processes while the claim is on delay. Again, most of the time, a qualified medical exam or an agreed medical exam may be needed to determine if the claim is work-related. So if in the case that there are denials of the claim, most of the time this comes because there's not enough sufficient time to receive medical evidence to support an injury is related to work. So again, it still will follow the same steps of getting a qualified medical exam or agreed medical examination. And then once that is all obtained, and if the injury is found to be work-related by that process, then of course the claim will be accepted at that time. Oh, went away. There it goes. Last one is good. Do you have any questions?
Thank you, Ms. Sarnes. Do we have any questions of Ms. Sarnes?
Lots.
Okay, Director Weber, you're first.
First of all, do you have any idea of how many appeals for treatment that are currently in fact or in case with Metro Fire right now?
That are currently in position standing?
Appeals that are either being appealed and or denied?
I would have to look that up. I don't know that number right offhand.
The second question is, when Sedgwick in this case does deny an appeal and an IMR, I didn't see that mentioned, but I don't know if that's part of the process.
Independent medical review.
Right, and then the QME. So are they required to identify you at any level of, or all level, I should say, of when an individual files a claim, seen by the doc, treatment is referred by the doc, and then it's either appealed or denied or accepted? Are they required to give you that information or provide the district that information?
Yeah, they usually will send me the decision of your utilization review. Mm-hmm. Yes.
And I've given the chief a questionnaire that perhaps we can discuss in the future about exactly that, as far as how many individual cases Sedgwick is actually denying treatment on presently. It seems to be a very high amount to me, but you would know better than myself. So maybe there'd be an opportunity in the future to discuss that.
Yeah, I'd love
Further,
to.
please.
Thank you.
Thank you. Director Rice, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. President. Before I go to questions and a couple of comments, I would ask the chair, I know we have a number of committees. We have an RFP coming up for a new third-party administrator. I would like to ask that you would entertain putting together from members of the board, a workers' compensation committee so that we can not only know what's going on with the RFP, but there are a lot of things involving workers' comp, and I'll get to that, Candace. I'm sorry you're on the hot seat. But we're not where we should be. And I'll just put it like that. This week, I've been made aware of a number of different cancers of our members and young members and men and women that I work with. And there's a couple of things that I believe this committee could do the work on, and we should do the work. And I've seen this, and I'll just say it. And if I offend anybody, that's the way it is. But I will tell you, if you're applying for the chief's job here, I'm not interested nor looking at somebody that is going to do everything an attorney tells them or everything that a consultant tells them. I really want somebody that knows their job and can make independent decisions. We don't work for attorneys. We don't work for consultants. They work for us. So that being said, I know that we have a very fresh cancer diagnosis, and the person called in, and one of the first things they were told was, you'll likely get this denied. And that's no, that needs to end because of presumptions. And we'll just use cancer because we have so many of them right now. You know, think about this. You've just been diagnosed with cancer. You've given 30 years of hard service to this community, and then you go to seek help, and then one of the first things you're told is file it, and this is what will happen. The first thing is your claim will be denied. I helped write 1127, so I know what it says.
Absolutely.
And the burden of proof is no longer, nor has it been for over 20 years, on the employee. It is on the employer, and it is not. We can blame Sedgwick all we want. It's us. We are the ones that allow that to happen. And that day needs to end. And I will tell you, I expect that if there are cancer diagnoses out there, that those members are told your claim is accepted, and you turn to Sedgwick and go, you got 75 days to disprove this. The burden of proof is not on the employee. And we have allowed this company to flip that around at the expense of the men and women that serve the public. I'm done with it. And I've only been here since July. This will be the lane that I will dig a hole to hell on. This has to change. And the other one, Labor Code 4610.5G. And if you look it up, and I know that we were just talking about UR, utilization review, did you know that the employer can overturn that decision? And if an employee is denied treatment by the doctor, the insurance company, the third-party administrator, the employer has the ability to overturn that. And secondarily, 4909 of the Labor Code, that treatment can be provided in a denied case without the admission of liability. So it does not encumber or put the employer in a place where they have just obligated themselves on something that hasn't been decided. And that's where I go, Chief Bailey, where I talked about, I want people thinking. I want them to utilize the law in the best way possible in the benefit of our employees. We have some men and women on this job right now or recently retired that their future is not what it should be. And I'll tell you what, it shouldn't include having to worry about what your workers' comp, or let's just stop that, how your employer is going to treat you, because that's what it comes down here. The buck stops here. It's every single one of us. We are allowing this to happen. Not going to blame it on anybody else. This is our fault, and we have to change it. The law is on the side of the employees. The fines are up from $10,000 to $50,000. And believe me, I will be watching that like a hawk And we can't keep doing the same thing we're doing to our members. You know, we've got PFAS. Is everybody familiar with that? It's in our turnouts. A couple of the new cancer cases we have are prostate and other areas that PFAS is right in there. And the fact that in August, the World Health Organization and IRANC, the International Association for Research on Cancer, designated firefighting as a class 1 carcinogen. Every single cancer claim that comes into this department should be accepted. And that member should be put on 4850 time, and then they should go through the treatment process. And if you're afraid to make that decision because the attorney will say something different, then you're going to live with that. But I'm done. And some of that today comes from one of the latest folks that I've worked with that got a cancer diagnosis. We lost a dear friend over the weekend. I'm done with it. This is our fault. It's not Sedgwick's. It's not HR's. It's ours. And we're either going to stop the buck or we're not. And from this day forward, this board member wants every single cancer diagnosis to be accepted. As soon as it's given, that member goes on 4850, and then we begin the treatment from there. They should not have to worry about getting healthy and having a productive life and know that their employer is working against them. That's what it is. It's got to stop. I'm sorry I'm on a high horse on it, but I can see these faces, and there are men and women that I worked with. I won't have it. And cancer is just the start. We're going down the cardiac road right after this. I will not stop until we have changed the workers' compensation attitude towards our employees into perpetuity, period. So I'm coming, and I'm gonna know what I'm talking about. And I'm pretty worked up over it. If we have cancer out there and they're sitting in this office and files with denial, a smart thing to do would be tell the third-party administrator they're accepted. You prove it. And if they bring a shill hack doctor to try to disprove it, bring it on. So that's I don't know if there's a question in there, but I'm fed up.
Well,
I've got a question.
I'll ask that.
I've got a question.
Being the chair. Yes, thank you for those words, Director. Yes, Director Costa.
Question. How do we, so you've laid out a couple ideas. How do we move those ideas forward? What do you need from
I
this?
think it's a
board?
cultural attitude. I think that we as a board said it. I think a good start would be a workers' comp committee.
Yeah,
Because we're talking-
I will take that under consideration. I heard it. I heard it.
We're talking about a cultural
idea.
consideration here, a cultural shift and behavioral shift that the greatest gift we all have is our mind, you know, and our hearts. And we have the ability to make decisions, and we're not locked in by what a third-party administrator says or an attorney says or a consultant says. We're locked in by what the law is, and the law is not on their side.
And I support that. I mean, I think we have an obligation to the employees here. We have to do everything we can to try to address those issues. So I support moving forward as a committee and then looking at options after that one.
I heard it.
Yeah.
Yes. You got it. Okay, are there any other questions? Oh, Director
I just
Webb.
want to comment.
Yes, go ahead.
I just want to let you know, this is no way in shape or form target on you at all. I thank you for the hard work that you do and the HR does, but unfortunately, you gave us the platform. I also am extremely passionate about this. And I am with Director Rice. I will fight tooth and nail until we get this fixed. I'm hot. Thank you.
Thank you. And no further questions?
Right here.
Okay, go ahead.
I would
Director.
just like to say a comment that I'm very glad that this was brought up tonight, because this too is very near and dear to my heart also. That anything that comes under presumptive heart, lungs, hernia, any kind of cancer should just automatically be taken care of.
We all agree.
And I have asked these questions before. Why is this not being taken care of? I want to thank you, Director Rice, for your passion and your push. A few months ago, when I was sitting there in the chair, And I had the presentation with the scientists to do the sleep deprivation study. She made the point of announcing that the World Health Organization had just put sleep deprivation on their list as a carcinogen. So that is just another thought for us all to keep in mind. That's it. I'm done. Thank you, President.
You're welcome. Director Gould, did you have any comment or question? Okay. Hearing none, thank you for an excellent presentation, and we will work with to form this committee and get to some of the answers to your questions, your concerns, Director Rice.
Thank you.
Okay. Next presentation is a leadership legacy recognition. That would be Jeff Wells. For Jeff Wells, Interim Chief Haverty will be doing that presentation.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to be quick this evening because you have a full nomination in your board packet. So this nomination is only the second nomination for this district's Leadership Legacy Recognition Award. I, together with others of the staff, are nominating Jeff Wells, Firefighter Wells, who had a 26-year career here. Jeff has done outstanding work. He's done some of the first work in the area of peer support and behavioral health support for first responders, not just here at Metro Fire, but within the region. And he certainly has created a legacy of assistance for those of us who go through difficult calls or difficult experiences within our work in the fire service. And so the process for this is to share this with you, which I've just done, and turn this over to our council, who will then look at it and bring it to you. So that's the process. We'd like to get this done for the March 30th awards banquet. And so I would appreciate your attention to it when it comes to it. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Chief. That concludes our presentations. We're going to go into action items now. And the first one is state funding acceptance of the Zinfandel First Responder Training Facility. Aaron Castleberry, our administrative analyst, will do a presentation. We'll bring the item to the action item.
Good evening, board. Chief Haverty. I'm happy to be here tonight. Finally, the moment we have waited for has arrived. We've been working hard on securing this funding for the next steps at our Zinfandel site. And as many of you know, last year we began a campaign for obtaining some state funding, a direct budget appropriation from the state as part of their fiscal year budget. And Assemblymember Ken Cooley spearheaded that effort along with many of our staff and directors and Chief Harms at the time, and that was secured in the state's budget. With the recent changes and revenue projections, there was some news. I think we reported a few board meetings ago that we hadn't officially heard anything that our funding was going to be withdrawn, but that we were going to try to keep it top of mind. Since then, I know Director Sailors has worked on that. Our staff, Jeff, obviously, and our Director of Governmental Affairs, Kyle McDonald, has worked with our partners in the community and at Cal OES to keep this issue top of mind. So I appreciate that. We did finally receive the paperwork that is needed from Cal OES as the pass-through agency to receive that funding. So what we're asking here tonight is for the board to accept that funding and to delegate authority to the fire chief or his designee on staff to sign all the required documents and accept that funding so that we can move the project forward.
As Ms. Castleberry just mentioned, the recommendation is to adopt the funding acceptance resolution and amendment to the fiscal year 2022-23 capital improvement plan resolution. Are there any questions? Having no questions, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Director Rice, and second by Director Jones. Whatever.
And Mr. Joe Portola, a huge thank you and acknowledgement to Castleberry and Fry and everyone else who contributed to this, including our past and present elected officials outside this agency for a really hard lift. A lot of competition, a lot of hours, sweat and tears went into it. Thank you, staff. Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Could you call the roll, please?
Director Sailors,
Aye.
Weber,
Aye.
Sheets,
Aye.
Gould,
Aye.
Wood,
Aye.
Rice,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Costa,
Aye.
and Clark.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Thank you for that great report. That good news. Ms. Castleberry. Next on the action item is emergency work approval for Station 101 repairs. Deputy Chief Wagaman will.
Good evening, President Clark, Board of Directors, Fire Chief Haverty, Tyler Wagaman, Deputy Chief of Support Services. With an update on Station 101, this is a follow-up from the resolution that you passed at our last board meeting, declaring that an emergency does exist at Station 101, and you allowed us to start the work to complete the cleanup following the fire that occurred there without going out to competitive bid. So with that, I would like to first follow up with Director Weber. You had some questions regarding tools and equipment that was on the quotation. I did some additional research. It is all equipment and no tools. The equipment is specific to air scrubbers and expendable HEPA filters for each one of those. They're very costly. As far as the tools go, historically, they do a 3% charge on the labor rate for the use of tools. It's a depreciation that they use. However, on this quotation, they did not assess that on our quotation just because of the scope of work that is currently underway. Now, if they bid on the build back process, I would foresee 3% within the quotation for that, but I don't want to jump the gun. So with that, this is somewhat of a unique process because there is an emergency. So I broke it up into three different phases. Phase one being the emergency cleanup and debris removal. The second phase is the RFB process, and phase three would be the build back process. So an update on phase one, again, the cleaning and debris removal. The cleaning and removal of the damage following the kitchen fire at Station 101 continues. Initially, this phase was scheduled to be completed prior to today, but due to additional asbestos that was located in the dining room above the T-bar ceiling, the cleaning process is still underway. So we are scheduled to have that process completed and all cleaned up by tomorrow. So my hope and goal is to stand before you at our next board meeting and ask that you recognize that an emergency no longer exists. Now, as far as the phase two process, the RFB verbiage is already completed. We're in the process of getting that posted. We just wanted to ensure that the cleanup was completed before we do that in order for the contractors to have a solid job block. So we hope to get that posted. Again, by next board meeting, I should have an update for you so we can get that rebuilt and get those firefighters back in their kitchen. So with that being said, it is staff's recommendation that you recognize that an emergency still exists at Station 101 so we can complete the cleanup process, and we'll require a 4/5 vote here this evening. With that, that concludes my report unless you have any questions for me.
I have a question. How are the guys doing that had to relocate?
Great question. So we have relocated the engine and the medic back in the quarters. They are sleeping there now. However, they do have to relocate to the arson building during the day in order for their day room as well as their kitchen and cooking.
Thank you. Any further questions? No? Having none, I will entertain a motion.
I'll move staff's recommendation, Mr. Chair.
Second. Director Woods is motioning, Director Rice? Costa, you're the second. Board Clerk, please call the roll.
Director Sailors,
Aye.
Weber,
Aye.
Sheets,
Aye.
Gould,
Aye.
Wood,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Rice,
Aye.
Costa,
Aye.
and Clark.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you, directors.
Thank you. This next item, I would like some input from our council. After we, before we conclude the motion and the approval. And the recommendation was to consider ratification of resolution to extend teleconference of board meetings, government code 54953E3. And the recommendation is consider and adopting a resolution which would extend the ability to teleconference without compliance with government code paragraph 3 of subdivision B of section 54953 from February 23rd to February 28th, or until we further ratified. This sunsets basically on the 28th, which is next Tuesday, I think. And Council, would you, elaborate on this a little bit?
Yes, thank you, President Clark. We put this on the agenda to give us the option for the remainder of February, just in the unlikely event that a special meeting had to be held or an emergency meeting had to be held, that we were still able to do it by Zoom teleconference under the current government code provisions that allow that to happen. Just to take full advantage of that. But come February 28th, per the governor's order, there's no longer a state of emergency, which was the basis for the allowance of the Zoom meetings that we've been doing and the hybrid meetings we've been doing now. So with that coming to an end, the legislature's amended the provision of the government code, which allows for teleconference meetings, and has added some additional requirements that really, in my view, it's the legislature saying, look, for elected bodies, we want to try to get back to doing these meetings in person. The days of just an easy hitting a Zoom link are over with. There's provisions here where you can still have a board member or members attend virtually under certain circumstances, but moving forward, unless there's another state of emergency issue, the legislature is looking to have the public meetings held in person. So moving forward after February 28th, there's still an opportunity for board members to appear virtually, but it's been very much restricted. And I won't go into all of the details of the statute. There's many smaller details, but the gist of it is that in order for a board member to appear virtually after February 28th, there has to be a system in place where the public can appear virtually with audio visual capabilities, a platform for audio visual capabilities. There must be a quorum, which here would be 5 members, has to be in a singular location. So you can't be spread out in doing teleconference meetings like we had the opportunity to do in the past. So there, you have to have that public access. You have to have at least a quorum present in a singular location. And then for a board member who wishes to attend virtually, they can do so in 2 ways. They can make a request as soon as reasonably possible, as soon as they can, saying that they need to appear remotely due to just cause. And just cause has been described as, example, child care issues or caregiving issues of family members that require remote attendance, having a contagious disease, a physical or mental disability, or traveling on business on behalf of the agency or any other state or local agency. So a board member who fits one of those categories could still attend virtually by making that just cause a notification. The kicker on it is it can only be used 2 times by each board member for the calendar year. So only for 2 meetings. So there's that. The other way is in an emergency circumstances, the board member can notify the board that there is an emergency that requires them to appear virtually. The board must take action to approve the attendance due to emergency situations. And there has to be a statement on the record of what that emergency is, taking into account the medical privacy laws and the privileges and privacy issues that might exist. So that's really intended, from what we can read into the statute at this time, for a true emergency where someone gets in an auto accident or something and can't make it to a meeting. But those are the two ways, and absent one of those two ways, the attendance by the board members needs to be in person and can't move forward under a teleconferencing situation like we have now. So I wanted to make all the board members aware of that's where the law sits now. It is due to sunset in 2026. When this law was coming into effect, there was a thought that because everyone got used to Zoom meetings and they were efficient and it was a way for board members to more easily attend and the public to more easily attend, and people got used to it, that there might be some more leeway given, but it seems to be that the legislature said we want publicly elected officials who are on board to attend, absent fitting into one of these two categories. I've let the clerk and brief clerk on this, and so she has any further information that you have that you'd like to have, or you can contact me, or in the event you have an emergency or a just cause situation that you want to bring forward to activate the teleconferencing, that information is available. So that's my report on that, and I can take any questions if anyone has any.
Thank you for that report, Council. Do we have any questions of Council Lava? Okay.
Mr. Chair, I have one more question.
Okay.
If no board members if everyone is here, no remote, does Metro Fire have to offer Zoom remote for the public?
If everyone is here?
Correct.
Don't have to, but you have the option to.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, all right.
I should say there's nothing in the law that prohibits Metro Fire from having that option if they still want to have it.
We do have the broadcast.
Yeah, no, I just, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No further questions? Having no further questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Mr. Chair, I move staff recommendation.
Okay, Director Jones.
Second.
All right, second Director Wood. Call the roll, please.
Director Sailors.
Aye.
Weber.
Aye.
Sheets. Aye. Gould.
Aye.
Wood.
Aye.
Rice.
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
Costa.
Aye.
And Clark.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, the last action item that we have tonight was this item also will be ruled on, or after we come from closed session. It's the industrial disability retirement for Captain Robert Radigan, and Interim Chief Haverty would like to have say a word about this individual. Okay, we'll do that afterwards. So this will be in the closed session. We're not gonna deal with it right now. So we're going to reports, and President's report. I have nothing to report right now. We'll go directly to the Fire Chief's report. Interim Chief Fire. Chief Haverty.
Board, chief officers, members of the public, and staff present here. I'll have some personnel actions that I'd like to report out on. Congratulations to Battalion Chief Rosario Coelho for being selected to fill the Emergency Planning and Safety Battalion Chief assignment. That's effective February 26th. We have two promotions. Congratulations to Joe Akes for his promotion to Facilities Manager effective April 1st. This is following the pending retirement of current Facilities Manager John Rayside. And congratulations to Stephen Davison for his promotion to Assistant Fleet Manager effective also April 1st, following the pending retirement of current Assistant Fleet Manager Timothy Swain. And then I'd like to introduce and welcome Mrs. Sherry Martucci. Sherry comes to us from long years of service at Metro Fire, American River Fire, and Metro Fire as an annuitant, and she will be our interim board clerk. So I have some company as another interim here. So I'd like to welcome and thank Sherry for coming to help us. A couple save the dates, March 15th at 5:30 p.m. Over at Rancho Cordova City Hall, we'll have a promotions ceremony. And March 30th at 5:30 p.m., our annual awards gala at Arden Hills Country Club. And just real quickly, we finished our second round of Brown Act training today. It was quite informative. We'll have a third one, perhaps a different format for the next time to continue our training and education in those areas from 3 learned counselors. They did a good job today helping us out. I appreciate that. I'd like to let you know that we have some big congratulations, which I touched on in my fire chief's Friday report to you last week, but the public doesn't know about these yet. We heard about the $13 million grant. Good job for that, and look forward to the Zinfandel training project getting off the ground. Also from our finance division, I told you, but the department and perhaps the public certainly doesn't know, they have been very busy in these board meetings this evening, your committee meeting and here tonight, but they've also been awarded 4 awards for their work in their accounting practices and financial reporting that you heard from tonight in the audit and other areas, the CIP plan, final budget. So they're going to have some expanded walls, I think, in the finance division just to put up all their plaques. They've done a great job, and I greatly appreciate their work. And then the beautiful community annual report that was made available to you tonight. A lot of hard work goes into that. One example of the support divisions that work behind the scenes that support everything that our suppression EMS forces do out there. So they do a wonderful job for us, and thank you for that. You have 2 dates for your spring board meeting that you spoke about at your last spring board workshop that you spoke about at your last board meeting. There's one a date in April and a date in May for you to consider. I have a proposed agenda based upon what you shared with me. If it's not complete, tell me so. I hate to go to 2 pages for it because I think we have to buy lunch and dinner to you. But you tell me what you want, we'll try and satisfy that for you. That completes my report. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for the Chief Haverty? Good. Hearing none, let's go on to operations report. Chief Mitchell, Deputy Chief Mitchell.
Thanks, President Clark. Good evening, Board of Directors, Chief, and all that are in attendance tonight. My name is Adam Mitchell. I'm the Deputy Chief of Operations, and I'm here tonight. Usually, as you think about operations, you think about fire engines, fire trucks, ambulances, helicopters, bulldozers, things like that. What our field crews do each and every day, I've highlighted those a number of times. The last couple of meetings, we've talked about our EMS division as well as our training and health and safety division. Tonight, I want to bring up somebody who really leads up a critical part of our operation, and it is really one of those unsung areas probably that just to give you some education on and highlight what they do, led by Ms. Laura Kelly, the staffing piece of what we do to make sure that we have folks that are in the stations and able to respond to those calls for service. So without further ado, and I want to say thank you to Laura for spending some time tonight with us away from her family and children to be here and give you a little bit about the staffing. It's my pleasure to introduce Laura Kelly from staffing.
Ms. Kelly.
Hi. Good evening, Board of Directors, Chief Haverty, colleagues, chiefs. Hi. So I'm Laura Kelly. I am the staffing specialist here at Metro Fire. I have worked for Metro Fire for 19 years, and I have been the staffing specialist for the last 9 years. So Directors Rice and Weber, you guys use Telestaff, but it has evolved a lot since you were working in end users in that program. So I'm the administrator for UKG Telestaff here. It's the staffing program we use for our suppression units and our medic units. It fills their assignments, it schedules them, it gives them a calendar that they're able to use to see when they're working and manage their time off. And then when they do that, it creates vacancies and we have to fill those vacancies in staffing. So how do we do that? Well, we have myself and I work with the program administration to write rules to tell the system how we want to fill our positions and what requirements are needed in those spots. And then we have a staffing team, and our staffing team is a labor and management cooperative group where we have representatives from operations, we have members of 522, we have union representation, and we have staffers, daily staffers in the group where we come up with recommendations of how we can improve what we do and stay consistent to make sure that we're filling our spots each day. And from that team, we have a staffing manual, which also drives our rules for the staffing process. So I work with all of those parts and write and configure Telestaff to have it operate so our staffers, our power users, can see a list that knows who they're going to be working and contacting to get to come back to fill some of the vacancies. And as stated, our staffers at Station 114, there are power users, our Battalion 5 battalion chiefs. They are incorporating all of these roles too, and they're doing the day-to-day filling of those spots. So they're really integral in our staffing process as well. And our daily roster that I'm talking about that we're filling, it's 194 person spots per day. And so far in 2023, our average callbacks are 42 per day. So it's a lot of positions, but because we have this process in place where we have the rules and we have the setup, it has become a pretty efficient process most of the time. In addition to the daily roster that Telestaff does, that's kind of what people see. There's some other pieces inside of it that I manage. We do a bid process for cross-shift bidding when people retire or promote. And we do a 3-year bid process where it's a all-out in-shift bid for the line members. And we do an annual vacation leave bid process. So that's all in Telestaff. So it's a pretty efficient process where we can configure it and put all of those bids into the system and execute the bid, and then it's on people's calendars and we're good to go. So the daily roster and the schedule is all made, it's all filled, but Telestaff's still working. It is integrated with our ePCR and our image trend system for instant writing and populating the roster over to those programs to assist with that report writing. It is an automated task that goes to those programs. So it's in the background. And then, of course, it feeds over to payroll. So our payroll division is able to get the pay information they need from what people worked. So Telestaff is a big integral piece of the daily operations here. And the staffing specialist position, my position, is a really dynamic position. I work in the operations division, but one thing that is really exciting is I get to work with people from all over the district in all different kinds of roles. I get to work with suppression, I get to work with IT, I get to work with HR, get to work with administration from the top down and the bottom up. So it's really an exciting position to be in. So I really do enjoy staffing and my position here. So if there are any questions?
Thank you. I love this where we got our deputy chiefs introduce a lot of the people that are making this district work. You know, the people that we never hear about, or and I really appreciate it. Any questions of Ms. Kelly? or Chief?
Laura is the one responsible for giving me the cool tables at the end of my. There's nothing I do, it's all her.
I know. That's all make you look good. You know, that's how it works. So
I'll say, just as we finish up here with the operations report, President, the couple, 21 into 22, we had an issue with our staffing program, and I will tell you that the only reason we got through those few weeks, and as stressful as they were, was the professionalism that Laura brought and the leadership she had to get us through that time, working closely with 522 and our staffers. And there was a big group effort. It takes a village, but the professionalism of our folks out in the field, as well as our staff behind the scenes doing their job, is an incredibly proud thing for us all to see every day. So thank you for the opportunity, and Laura, great job.
we got a lot of rock stars working for this organization. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next, we have an administrative report from Deputy Chief Bailey.
Good evening, Board of Directors, Board Chair, Ty Bailey, Deputy Chief of the Administration. I'm happy to report out that today our executive staff, Melissa Maddox in HR and Shelley Anderson from Bryce Consulting, met with our unrepresented staff to review the salary survey that we completed during negotiations. We fielded questions and explained the process, philosophy, and intent moving forward. And I want to thank everyone who attended today, who asked questions. And I look forward to evaluating the process as we move forward and making changes as needed to make it better in all areas. So thank you everyone who attended that today. It was very well attended. Recruitment, we have quite a bit going on. We do have an open EMT and paramedic recruitment, the facilities tech, logistics tech, fire investigator, mechanic, office tech, accounting specialist, inspector, supervisor inspector. We have a captain and BC test coming up before the end of the fiscal year, and board clerk. I want to thank everyone who assisted the interviews. We interviewed 34 paramedics. We had 64 that applied, 54 were invited to interviews, 34 paramedics. This is for the Metro Medic program, 34 interviewed. I'm happy to state that 28 passed and will be moving forward into the next phase of the background process. So congratulations to everyone who made it through that process. I want to thank Dave and your team, finance. Last year, we came to the board at mid-year with about a $12.2 million deficit. Much of that to do with, we talk about constant staffing and overtime, but realistically, we know that COVID hit us extremely hard last year. It was harder on our employees, on their families as well. But I'm happy to report that as we move into our March 9th meeting, we're not going to have to ask the board to go into reserves. Fortunate for us, the increase with the labor MOUs that we did not budget, we have enough revenues to offset those increases. So that's good news for us. Much better than what we brought last year. So thank you, Dave, to you and your team, and to everyone who assisted us through that process. Labor relations, we had a great meeting yesterday. It seemed like a week ago, but we had a 3-hour meeting, and we talked for 3 hours on service delivery, on the Metro Medic program, how we can better serve the communities, how we can expand the program. And you're going to see some increases in the PAD coming to you March 9th. And not only are you going to see the suppression increase from the fleet side, but we're also looking, and we had a lot of discussion on increasing the FTEs, and we are looking to increase in IT, finance, and fleet as well as we move forward into this budget cycle. And as we move into next year, we'll continue to reevaluate, meeting with all of our managers. As you grow one portion of adding positions, you also got to have the support behind it. So we recognize that, and we're looking forward to moving forward with that. So thank you to Local 522. Our meeting yesterday went really well. We had a lot of great discussion. Didn't get too argumentative, I don't believe, but I think overall it went great. We had a good week. It's been extremely busy. And that's the end of my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Okay, we have a question.
Yeah, I have one question about when you mentioned at the beginning of your report about the survey.
Yes.
You had a meeting today. Was that today you had that meeting?
We met with the unrepresented staff today at 11 a.m. for about an hour.
Okay.
Kelly Anderson was there, and we talked through the process of the information that she received, how we evaluated it, how we processed it, and how we're going to move going forward.
So she will still be working on the survey and reporting back to the board on.
So the survey is completed. From here, it's in our hands on how we want to look at it. We're waiting for feedback. There were employees that felt that the specialist, for instance, positions weren't looked at correctly.
Okay.
So we're getting feedback on that, and we'll bring it back to the board if we need to make additional changes.
Okay, thank you for more information on that. Thank you.
We have another question from
Mr.
Director.
President. Quick question. You mentioned on the recruitment side, we started with 64, is that right? Applicants?
Yeah, so 64 applied.
Okay.
64 paramedics.
Paramedics applied.
Yeah.
And then we interviewed 34 and we're moving forward with 28.
28.
What's the target number we're trying to get to?
Well, the number we're bringing to you for approval will be 39.
39.
We have 17 currently that are almost completed with backgrounds. There's 16 EMTs, 1 paramedic as well. And then we have over 340 EMTs that we're currently have applied, and we need to have a written test for them to start that process as well.
All right. Thank you.
Any other questions of Chief Bailey? Thank you very much, Chief.
All right, thank
Great
you.
report.
Thank you. Report. Thank you.
Yeah. Next on reports, we have support services that's Deputy Chief Wagaman.
Just making.
And a guest.
We'll delay a little bit more. Now, good evening once again, President Clark, Board of Directors, Fire Chief Haverty, Tyler Wagaman, Deputy Chief of Support Services, and the showcase continues at Chapter 4. Tonight, we will be showcasing our fleet division, and I will start off with just really talking to the public, providing them some information. The fire service is incredibly dangerous. And one of the most dangerous things that we do day in and day out is driving to and from calls. We do it over 100,000 times per year, and we put hundreds of thousands of miles on our apparatus. Simply put, when we step on the gas, we need to go. We provide a same-day service. We have to get there in a very quick period of time, safely, of course. When we step on the brakes, the rig needs to stop. When we put the rig into pump, it needs to go into pump. We don't have time to play around. And in order to maintain a fleet the size of ours, we need to have a large group of highly qualified mechanics, and we need an orchestrator and a manager to oversee this operation. So with that, it is my pleasure to introduce to you our fleet manager, Shay Purcell.
Chief Directors, Shay Purcell, your fleet manager. I started my career back in 1995 as a fire apparatus repair technician. I was 24, so I was a young one then, for American River Fire. After about 11 years, I was promoted to assistant fleet manager, where I served another 11 years before getting promoted to be your fleet manager in 2017. Our division currently has 15 staff, 9 mechanics, 2 master mechanics, a parts buyer, an accounting tech, an assistant fleet manager, and me. Together, we maintain a fleet of about 350 vehicles, goes up and down depending on the day, performing everything from oil changes to full engine overhauls and even replacing sections of our aerial ladders. We do everything. I mean, everything, other than body work. We don't do body work yet. We have 2 locations. Our main shop at McClellan boasts 30 bays and 44,000 square feet of space. We also have a small 2-bay satellite facility located at Station 50. In addition to the Monday through Friday work, we have staff on call for doing mobile vehicle repairs 24 hours a day. A little factoid, collectively, we have a combined 396 years of mechanical repair experience in my division. That's over 28 years per staffer. If you take my accounting tech out, we've been doing this a long time. So each of you has an open invitation to come visit us anytime you want, either location. And thank you for your time. We like to stay out of the spotlight. We don't like being up here. We just kind of keep things rolling in the background. That's okay. So thank you.
Mr. Purcell, I must say, I saw you in the hallway. I didn't recognize you. Last time I saw you, you didn't have that long beard.
It grows
It was around Christmas time. So I kind of know this guy.
I'm in disguise. See?
Well, I know. Big change, yeah. It wasn't anywhere near that. Are there any other questions of Mr. Purcell?
Have a great night.
Great night. Thank you. Chief Hageman, thank you for your report. That's good. All right. Okay, next we go on to General Counsel Lavra.
No report. My
No
report
report.
was my previous remarks.
Oh, thank you. And finally, on our reports, we have BC Matt Cole of Local 522, Vice President, Firefighter Local 522.
Good evening. Actually, I'd like to introduce Director Sean Scholar. He's going to be giving the 522 report tonight for all of you.
Sean Scholar. Welcome, Sean.
Good evening. I know everybody was hoping for Matt Cole's report, but you're going to get mine instead. So I'm just as surprised as all of you. So good evening, Board of Directors, executive staff, Chief Haverty, and Madam Clerk. My name is Sean Scholar, Director for Local 522, Captain assigned to 65 on the B shift. Although my crew would say different because I'm on a 60-day assignment where just facilitating, helping HR and Local 522 tackle a handful of projects. I'll be giving the 522 report this evening. First, I'd like to start off by thanking Directors Jones and Costa for visiting fire stations in Battalion 14 on their drill. Director Costa got some firsthand action with some 2.5-inch hose lines and even a mop bucket. I think there's pictures floating around about that. So it looks like you guys had a great time and the crews appreciate that. So thank you for coming out and visiting the station. So every time you get out and get that FaceTime with the crews, we always get a ton of positive feedback. So thank you for that. Since last board meeting, Local 522, we had our February e-board. As always, it went very well with our counterparts from all the other agencies that Local 522 represents. So that was very productive. The Pioneer Mutual Hook and Ladder had their crab feed on the 10th. I'm happy to say that we were able to sponsor that event. I did not attend, but I'm sure it was a great event. I'm not sure who did, but it seems like it always is. Local 522 was able to have a lunch with Dr. Mackey, the interim LEMSA medical director, and it seems like those conversations went very well, and there's a similar vision and direction, and everybody's on the same page. So very, very positive from that lunch meeting. In addition to that, there's been multiple labor groups meeting up and down the state talking about PPGMT education. I can say Vice President Matt Cole's been the ambassador of that, and I'm sure he doesn't want the credit for that, but he's really taken on that project and done just a fantastic job of helping non-contributors get more information to be contributors and lighten the burden on agencies that are participants like ourselves. And so I'd just like to thank him for carrying that message and traveling up and down the state, which is probably one of the reasons why I'm on a 60-day assignment while he's making that movement. So thank you, Matt, for that. In addition, I'd like to thank to Chief Bailey's point about the interviews, the men and women that had participated in the interviews this week for possibility of being part of the MMP program for Metro Fire. It's not necessarily the most glorifying thing to sit in there and stuff, but I know our members really appreciate sitting down and be able to hand select the men and women that are going to be working with them side by side. So thank you for that. I think there was also an interview process last week for arson investigation. So thank you for the folks that participated in that. A little bit about what I'm currently working on. So as a local, we've kind of split up our duties. My role as a director for Metro is to focus on HR, work with Chief Bailey and the HR staff and any situations that may come in that direction, particularly workers' comp. I can say that we've probably taken one of the most active roles in workers' comp from a labor group with Local 522 than we have in the past. It's really been a push. It's become kind of a passion of mine as well. I feel like we need to represent our members not only on disciplinary cases or arbitrations, grievances, or any of that, but the things that they're dealing with on a regular basis. And it seems like workers' comp cases are every single day, and they truly need some representation and guidance in that. And so I'm happy to say that we've really integrated ourselves into that process, and we're working hand in hand with HR to try and make the process better for everybody. I am going to be part of the RFP process for the TPA coming up, which is great, and that was supported by management. So we thank management for working with us to have a collaborative effort on that process, just to create some checks and balances so that we can give an input from a labor side, management can get theirs, and we can carry the same vision going into that process, make sure that our needs as an organization and for our members are met by whoever we decide to pick in that process. We have a unit meeting tomorrow in Battalion 7 for Metro Fire. So we've always had great turnouts with our unit meetings. Recently, it's been a lot better. I don't want to say always, but recently it's been great. Our participation is up drastically than it has been in years past. I think, again, that's just because of the positive energy that Vice President Matt Coles brought to the organization. Our members are very, very happy, and they like the path that we're going. And so we'll have that unit meeting tomorrow. And then to piggyback on what Chief Bailey said, labor management meeting went just absolutely phenomenal. Again, we're walking out of the room. I wouldn't even say there was any arguing, really. I think the arguing is kind of a thing of the past. And I say that wholeheartedly because I think that we're really working collaboratively on all these issues. We're reasonable. It's a give and take. And we walk out of the room with a clear vision of where we want to go. And so yesterday's meeting was a clear reflection of that. And so I'm happy to say that that I agree with Chief Bailey. So and with that, I have nothing else on my report unless there's any questions.
That's a great thing to see all this love going around and all the participation that's going on.
I'm going to be in this building a lot more. So
I love the good vibes. Do we have any questions for 532? Thank you, Sean.
Thank you very much.
Right.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right, next we go to committee and delegate reports. Executive committee, our next meeting is to be determined. Communications Center JPA, DC Wagon.
Good evening again, directors. The SRF ECC Dispatch Board last met on Tuesday, February 14th here at the Metro Board Chambers. In attendance that day, Assistant Chief Wilson, Folsom Fire, Assistant Chief Wilson, Sacramento City Fire, Deputy Chief Quiggle, Consumnes Fire, and myself. Presentation items, we had a great presentation from Supervisor Quintard from the Dispatch Center. He completed a very comprehensive after action review following the New Year's storms. Again, there was a lot of information on there, a lot of lessons learned, and things that we will utilize to implement some changes in the future. One of the big ones is some limitations within our CAD system. We finally got to a point where the CAD system decided not to accept any additional calls. It was overloaded. So obviously that's a big red flag for us. So we're putting some contingencies in place so that doesn't happen again. But when you're talking about 1,500 calls in a short period of time and dispatching over 1,000, we put that software to work. And for the most part, it did exactly what it was supposed to do. And it did scream mercy. So we'll get that figured out. Action items. Item number 1. OTM cyber quotation for cybersecurity services that was unanimously approved. Subject number 2, financial management consulting with Ken Campo. He's triple dipping. God bless him. He's doing a great job. That was unanimously approved. Launch on-site technical support. So it's a firm that they utilize for technical services. That was unanimously approved. And the last 2 items, which I'm very proud to report, is a tentative agreement with the local 856 and 150 for a 1-year extension on their contract. They were very happy with the offer. So were we. And again, both of those items were unanimously approved. On a congratulations front, Operations Manager Julie Todd celebrated 20 years of dedication and service to the dispatch center. A big congratulations to her. Our next meeting is going to be on February 28th, 9 o'clock at Consumnes Administration Services at 8820 Elk Grove Boulevard. That concludes my report, unless you have any questions for me.
Do we have any questions of the chief? Thank you, sir. Appreciate you. Next, we have Finance and Audit Committee, Director Wood.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We, Finance and Audit Committee met today. We had a very extensive meeting with CFO O'Toole. We got presentation on the mid-year budget, learned that our expenses exceed our revenues in this mid-year budget by about 10 million. And that includes property tax dip of about 200 grand, increase in our workers' comp costs by 199.8%, 22-23 versus 21-22. But despite that, we're going to make some adjustments, and we should end the year with our projected reserves at 36.1 million, or about 13.4% of our budget. We also got a report on the financial status as of December 31, 2022. And the biggest takeout of that was that our CERT fund is currently sitting at about 67 million. That's an increase as of that date from the prior report 2 months earlier of 2.6 million. And of our 263 million in unfunded liabilities under that fund, we're 25.5% funded. So we're doing very well there. Lastly, we got a presentation on the internal control procedures and practices, and it was very good. It was very detailed, and as you heard earlier from our auditor, our controls and practices are in line with where they should be. And that's the end of my report. Oh, our next meeting will be April 27, 2023.
Thank you, Director. Next, we have Policy Committee, Director Costa.
Thank you. Nothing new to report since our last board meeting, but our next policy committee meeting will be March 9th.
Thank you, sir. Next, we move to board member questions and comments. I'll start with Director Boone.
I have no comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Next, we go to Director Sailors.
I would just like to thank everyone for their outstanding presentations tonight. I really do enjoy seeing the people behind our deputy chiefs who are in the trenches doing the work. This has been outstanding. I just want to thank everyone for their information. That's it for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Sheets.
Hi, good evening. I just wanted to congratulate the employees who received promotions, and I'd like to welcome Sherry. And then also great presentations. So thank you for all the excellent reports and presentations tonight.
Director, thank you. Director Costa.
Thank you. Just want to thank Station 51 for the opportunity to come out and participate for the day. Got a chance to try to be a fireman for a day. And I'll tell you, it's an interesting juggle trying to just train, eat, work out, and the alarm keeps going off. You have to stop everything you're doing to get out. And they do a fantastic job. They were very welcoming, and it was a great experience. I look forward to doing more of those. And then I want to thank all the presentations today, especially the workshop we had early on Brown Act. I think it's one of the most important things we should be doing as a board to make sure we're all aligned and moving this organization forward. And finally, I know we have it on the agenda to talk later, but I do feel it's our obligation to make sure we're moving forward with finding your replacement chief. And I want to make sure the process is clear and transparent for everybody. So I look forward to that discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Director Rice.
I think I'm contained. Thank you.
Let me take your clothes. Are you all right?
Let's see, it's almost 8 o'clock. All right, trying to be here till midnight. No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead. You're good? I'm
good.
Oh, okay.
Oh, no, he
I
said
thought you were
he
gonna.
said it.
No, I know. Yeah.
Don't tempt him.
Director Jones.
No, thank you, Mr. President. Thank you very much. The last 2 hours, a ton of work has been done, a ton of discussion, information, and many of us here have been here since 2 o'clock for that ethics training. And a whole lot of work has been done today, and I want to thank each and every one of you for participating. I'm not going to go through the big checkoff list. There is one new item that I would request that we end the meeting with a moment of silence for retired Battalion Chief Jesus Romo, Sacramento Fire Department. We had his memorial earlier this week. He's passed now, and I would like a moment of silence for him. Jesus Romo has united all the firefighters and the firefighter families in California and beyond. He is the sculptor who created the Fallen Firefighter Memorial at the California Fallen Firefighters Memorial at Capitol Park. He is the artist, and that is perhaps the most moving piece for all of us in this room. So please, Mr. President, a moment of silence for sculptor and firefighter Jesus Romo.
Thank you, Director. I was going to mention that, and what I'd like to do is not wait till adjournment, because generally by that time everybody's gone. I'd like to do it at the end of this director's comments and question to comments. Thank you, Director. Director Wood.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would echo everything that's been said already. And the only thing I want to add is I want to express my gratitude to the crew at 54, Captain Josh Larson, Daniel Zumwalt, Engineer Daniel Zumwalt, and Firefighter Sean Schumacher for their hospitality last week. We had a great dinner, good meeting them. They also had an explorer that was with them that day. And it was, I apologize, I don't remember your name, but it was really exciting to see a high school student in the station, working with them, helping them out, learning the duties and kind of meeting the future of our organization. There's going to be in some good hands if this young gentleman's any indication. And I also want to thank Sean Schumacher for sharing his secret recipe for his jalapeno beans. So thank you.
Thank you, Director Wood. Director Weber.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief. First, I'd like to thank all of the deputy chiefs, division managers, and everybody that highlights the behind the scenes folks. That's actually my favorite part of this, is when we get to see what your folks are doing and how proud of all of you are of them. I'm not familiar with what happens anymore in behind the scenes, and maybe some of the board members aren't. So it's very refreshing to get your side of the story and their sides of the story, and all the hard work that is done every single day. So thank you for that. Secondly, I do have a clarification issue, for lack of better terms. Chief, I know you've been visiting stations, and I commend you for that, but I understand that you were directed by the board to mentor 3 individuals only. And I wasn't aware of that direction.
No.
You're misinformed.
Yes.
Oh, thank you.
That's absolutely.
Well,
we love that he's visiting the station.
Pardon me?
I think it's a great thing that personally that he's visiting the station.
I apologize. I withdraw that. I am misinformed, obviously. No questions.
Thank you, Director. Well, what a wonderful organization. That's all I can add to this. Everything else has been said. So before we adjourn to closed session, I would like to have that moment of silence for Jesus Romo, Battalion Chief of the City of Sacramento. We'll adjourn to closed session, and most of you, I know it's been a long day, and